Hello and welcome to another Sacred Wisdom podcast with Chris Clifford and me and Grandmother Mulara and Sue Cimino. Welcome everyone. It's been a while, but I'm so looking forward to catching up and hearing from you. Over to Chris.
Thank you, Becky. Hi, Grandmother Mulara and Sue. It's good to see you. Today, we're just going to have a free flowing conversation. We always have a lot to talk about with Grandmother Mulara and Sue. So I will hand over to Grandmother Mulara to get us started.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you again. Fantastic. Like old friends, like an old woolly jumper. You put it on and you feel comfortable. So I wanted to share, and we'll see how long this takes. I wanted to share actually what a group of us did at at solstice, winter solstice down here, summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, of course. 3 weeks before the solstice, I got called up, and I get messages like this in different ways from different people. You're not sure whether what you're doing is correct or not. You just drop it. Don't hold on to anything in your head. Let spirit flow through. So the message came through via via another person who's probably not human, and said to me, they contacted me and said, hello. They said, we've been looking for you for 3 years. I sat up straight and listened and said, there has been an agreement. Our original people had an agreement with the Draco, reptilian, maybe that kind of race of beings that was 16,000 years ago. And that agreement has passed. It ended 5 years ago. But unfortunately, what has been happening is that the Stargate, which they've been traveling, and I knew where that was, and that's what made me also stand up when I got information about certain places in the country. I went, well, this person's accurate. They know what I know. And it's kind of like sometimes it's an example of a secret that we hold. This one was a big secret. And it's not something I just tell anyone. It was given to me to hold. And if this didn't happen, I guess I would pass it on. So the idea was, or the need was that it needed to be closed because they were still sneaking in and out of the dimensions, interdimensional. It's an interdimensional pathway. And so this is a case when you don't quite know what you're doing. There's no manual for this. I kept saying, no, none. You've got to go with your heart. You can't have your ego involved. You can't have your head involved. You can't go, and you can't even second guess if you're up to the challenge. If you're given a mission, then you have to feel if it resonates in your body. And I knew exactly what this mission was, and I thought, this is okay, well, it's come to now. And a long story short, although the long story is actually the 4 days of ceremony, I was able to cobble together, there were 10 of us in skin suit form and 1 in spirit form. And so 11 of us got together. I managed to place people in strategic places all around Australia, and 1 in the centre. And what we did, it's safe now to tell you, I think, I don't know if any of you, some of you, our listeners will know that the Schumann resonance suddenly did a very strange thing. But guess what? I'm telling you now what it was, because we did it. So we had to, so I was requested, is the word, to go and the request was coming, but I knew what the request was. even vibrationally, we were telepathically talking, and not so much in words, but telepathically communicating through the Zoom what it was about. And the other person was not sure what she was really saying to me, but just finally found me and said, I found you. We've been looking for you. I thought, okay, well, so anyway, I got what came is that there was a large pentagram over Australia, an inverted pentagram that was holding the nefarious energies. And over the course of the preparation to go there, we realized that each point of the pentagram has other pentagrams holding those things in place, imprisoning a whole lot of beings in the etheric world, in that interdimensional space. It's been very fascinating. So what we did do was, in a nutshell, all of us were at different points. We had a WhatsApp group so that we could actually live stream what it was we were doing. And essentially we flipped the pentagram, and then we dissolved it. We brought in the flower of life. So the flower of life is the picture that the Schumann resonance is showing. When it went really weird, that was because we had ended this this spell that had been over us. We had ended that spell, and we had brought in the flower of life, like lots of eternity symbols everywhere. And then the ribbons of creation came through, and we reactivated the seven sisters, dreaming, but actually now into nine sisters, which is what it was meant to always be. And in New Zealand, they actually celebrate the Makariti, which is the nine sisters dreaming. So in a nutshell, that's what we did. But wait, there's more. On the day that we were about to flip the pentagram, how do I say this? So in understanding that we're working interdimensionally with other beings, we tuned in that there was a being, he was black, so we called him Blackie. There was a being, a bit like a monster, but not really, in the waters between the mainland and the island that we had, that three of us went to. And part of your gifting or making safe passage is to gift the spirit of that area. So in this case, it was the spirit of the water. I know in the Scandinavian countries, they talk about trolls, so you gift the trolls and you pay your way, pay the ferryman, whatever. So we did that. And when I tuned in, I released him. I said, you are now released, you can go home. And we gifted him some items that were from special places of Australia that were appropriate for a water being. Anyway, I said you've got one more sunset, and then I'm going to close the gateway. And in that time, this is where the work of the heart is just a phenomenal experience. He woke up, he hadn't ever felt that love before. He had been trapped. He'd been trapped by the nefarious ones to patrol that area and make havoc, actually, make it not safe passage a lot of the time, or whatever mission he was given. And what turned around, he became, it was like a puppy dog for us. He became our ally. And he helped us clean up around the areas that we need to clean up, because he was in the water. We cleaned that up with his help. And then when the time came to go home, and I said, right, we're, sunset, I'm closing it. He said, I don't want to go. What now? So the next part of the chapter of the manual was, I fell into it and went, and then I said, oh, why is that? And he said, this is telepathic. He said, he will be killed if he goes home, because he helped us on this last day and he escaped from being imprisoned. Now, we did the same thing for other places around Australia. I'm not going to disclose where, but we had a dragon released, and she could get to her eggs. She was desperately trying to get to her eggs that were, her nest was being hidden. She got to the nest. Anyway, that's one, and another one. We've got all sorts of beings. And it turned out that we kind of had to, we realized we had a refugee situation. And so I just WhatsApped everybody and said, right, for today, right, we are the Intergalactic Diplomatic Council for a day, and had to diplomatically work out what we were going to do, how we were going to help the refugees in the other dimensions that didn't belong here, and also had a home elsewhere, but to help them leave. So I called in a rescue ship, and I learnt how to do that from my law elder, who used to do a lot of work, sending people off planet, working with the ETs, she called them, our friends, who would rehabilitate. So taking a leaf out of her book about rehabilitation, we gave them all an option. Not the baddies. They were told, you've got till sunset and I'm closing the Stargate. So that was happening. They were all rushing to that place where it is. And at the same time, we'd called in a ship, a rescue ship, and said, can you, and gave the choice to those beings to go onto the rescue ship, onto the, to the ship, to take them to a parallel world. Right at the end. So I've got this rescue ship here, galactic rescue ship. We've got a portal in the water going around. I've got photos of this. Portal in the water, in the sea, and then we've got a portal in the sky. And I couldn't see it, but the two people with me could see it. They said there were just millions rushing to leave. They were just woof, 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 woof. And the galactic ship was ready to go, and I said, right, we're off, you're off, bon voyage. And then what happened is that we had a fight in the sky between white dragons and a dark shadowy beings, and the dark shadowy beings didn't want to leave. They were going to stay. Enter these white light dragons, massive beings, and there was this fight in the air. I'm holding this whole thing like just guided by my heart. It's my heart. That's all there is. Just guided by my heart, and watched the last one. We managed to get the others to go, but the last, they spiraled down and hit the beach, and they were injured. And there was a seal that turned up in the water, and I directed the seal to pilot the dark ones into the water portal, which she did. And for the white light dragons, and I must mention them because they gave their life to ensure that this mission was successful. And one was very badly injured, and the other, its companion, was with it. And I said, we don't have the capability to heal you in this realm. So I said, go onto the galactic ship. So I called it back. It was just shimmered out of, then it came back, and I said, go to the ship and you'll be cared for and looked after there. And I felt guilty afterwards because I didn't say that you can't come back this way again. It'll be finished. It'll be closed. So part of me cried. Well, I did. I cried when I realized that one free will command that I had forgotten to mention, just in the thing. And I hope that if ever they do need to come back, they'll find a way. But once that happened, then the ship was dismissed to go, closed the portals, and all was finished. There's a lot more that happened, but I'll just wanted to share that we did a really big, massive effort, and we closed the Stargate forever. I did a proviso that only a whale heart can open it again. And that's it. It's finished. And there's been amazing experiences by people reporting, in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, actually. Schumann resonance being one of them. What we've noticing is that in the ancestral realm, they are showing themselves more. And they're showing themselves to not just original people, they're showing themselves to all people who are in the bandwidth, who have risen in their frequency. They're showing themselves and helping to guide them. And this is a phenomenal experience that's happening now. So if any of our listeners are finding that, well, I'm actually having dreams where I'm in corroboree with original people, or there's a original woman or a man, in my vicinity, and they're talking to me, telepathically, and I'm, not to be afraid. What's happening is that there's been a lot of our people, ancestral, who've been released, just as I explained about Blackie. All right, he was released. We've had other beings released. Our ancestors who were chained have now also been released. Not all of them were chained. What they've done is they've stepped forward because it's safe now to appear. And the old elder of the island of where we were, I'm told by a sister, she said, he's appeared again just 2 days ago. She said, you can now tell the story. So here you are.
Grandmother Mulara, that's absolutely phenomenal. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, and your team, for all the work that you've done. I've got a lot of questions, but one of them, Chris and I are working on our spiritual topics, like for the future, and one of them is about mythical creatures. And I do it like this because, we call them mythical creatures, but how mythical are they? They're so imprinted on our psyche worldwide, that we think of them as made up creatures, dream creatures. But I know that many of us have had contact with them and find them very real. So these include dragons, unicorns, mermaids, mere people, and giants, and also one-off creatures like Nessie, Loch Ness monster, for whom there's had several sightings. People have sightings of it and wonder, think it's an old dinosaur from the past that's sort of stuck in the lake, and they know that there's a tunnel where the lake can go to underground water, so perhaps it can travel through underground waters around the world. I would love to just have a little conversation about dragons and mythical creatures, because where do they come from? How do they interact with us? They're a bit like angels for me. I feel that they are, and spirit guides, that they have, because I have not only can the mythical creatures like dragons be part of our spirit guides and help us and help the world as a whole, but also real creatures that we have here, like the whale, but you have as your own spirit guide, and the large turtle that I have, and there's many others of real creatures that we have on Earth who are also have the mythical status because they are extra super large and they're in spirit and they work with us to help and guide us. So I'd love to just throw that comment out there and see where that goes for the moment.
Well, Sue hasn't had a word in yet. Maybe she'd like to respond first.
Thanks, Grandmother Mulara. I love hearing more about the story. You had told me a little bit about it, but I love hearing about it. And I love how the dragons came in at the end and really helped. You had mentioned, well, you had mentioned that most of the dark forces, most of the dark beings left through the portal before you closed it, but that there were some that were stuck that would be taken care of. Because I've been getting messages, not telepathically, like from people and from people that work with people, that they're noticing that there's more, almost like they're trying to find their way to the light, and they're going and finding somebody that they think will help them get there, which because they don't want to get stuck here and they're ready to have something different happen, which has been interesting that it's an uptick. And so, I've been doing clearing more globally as much as I can. And I know I'm not the only one. So that's one comment. It's interesting, Becky, that you are asking about dragons, and I had shared this with Grandmother Mulara, which is probably why she threw me under the bus here for a minute. 4 years ago, I'm sleeping now, and I don't have, I'm sleeping, and I feel something crawl up into my side, and I'm asleep, and I know it's not a dog. I know it's not a cat. I mean, it's not physically there because I'm dreaming. And so when I woke up, I'm like, okay, what was that? And I'm clearing, if it's not my highest, and but I'm like, I think it might still be there. So I started writing a couple of my psychic friends who hear and see, because I'm the rock. And I kept thinking it reminded me of like the little, I kept thinking it reminded me of like a gargoyle or something. And I'm thinking that, and I'm like, I don't want to tell them I had a gargoyle curl up in my side, but they're like, it's a baby dragon and it's supposed to be there. Like, because that's what I'm asking. It's like, I can't seem to get rid of it. Is it supposed to be here? And they're like, yeah, it's a baby dragon. It's supposed to be there. And so it's been interesting. And because a couple of people that I'm close to have seen it, and he's like, it's a he, and he's a teenager now. I don't have communication, and yet I have had experiences when I was on the Isle of Skye with a group of women doing spiritual ceremonies across England and especially in Scotland. And I don't see many things, but when I was over in England, when I would close my eyes, I would see faces. I always assumed it was around the cemeteries and things like that, and I would help them cross. But we were doing a ceremony out on Iona, the Isle of Iona, and I have my eyes closed. We're in circle doing a specific ceremony, and I see faces, and then I see this dragon looking at me, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And it was the only place. I lost everyone in the group. Like when we're moving around this little island, they turn a corner and then I can't find them again. But as I started reading signs, they were mentioning the dragons that were sighted there during different times in the history, which I found fascinating. So I have little smatterings of dragon connections. Even my friend in Australia said, oh, we're gonna make clay dragons today. And I'm like, okay, why not? And so over there I have this clay dragon that I made 10 years ago, and I've been carrying it around the world with me, maybe 13 years ago. So,
dragons have had bad press, and so they've hidden themselves, and yet they are, my experience of what I've just shared with you, They're the most loving, unconditionally loving, benevolent beings that, you know, those two dragons were fighting to the death to ensure that all of us, you know, for the whole of the planet, that we all got this thing done and cleared. And yet, if I wasn't here to tell you, you wouldn't have known. So we don't know what's in that, not really in that other realm, but we certainly, what is happening is for people who have done the work of raising their vibration, they're seeing things, like the veil is being lifted and they're seeing more of what's in the field around them. And I can tell you that what we saw leaving, you know, there wouldn't be too many left. I can tell you, it was absolutely packed. And so the mythical creatures that we say are mythical, I think have just gone, they've just been hidden. Like the, you know, the hairy ones and the yeti, the whatever. I mean, dragon sounds really great, you know, but it's also, we've got little people. We've got, you know, the leprechauns, I suppose. They're more obvious in places like Ireland. But we have little people. We have the divas of the forests, of the gardens. They're there. And, you know, I'm more clairsentient, although I do see sometimes. But I really appreciate being like doing this work with those that can see, because then they could script exactly what was happening, the narrative, while I could sense it and adjust accordingly, the energies. But it was, you know, I was so expanded after that for a good week. I even forgot to feed the cats. So it was like I was just so expanded. It took a while to come back.
Do you think like the mythical creatures, do you think that they're multidimensional, and that perhaps as humans are raising their vibration, we're beginning to recognize our own multidimensionality, and so we can run into them in ways that we couldn't before? What's anybody think about that?
I'm going to dip in here again, because I think that's absolutely right. Beings can be, you know, of different dimensions, and I think a lot of them are within the fourth dimension, which is so closely connected with the third that we can, those that are psychic and those that are, well, yeah, psychic people can basically see them. And there's so many stories worldwide of people being able to see fairies or you know, Sasquatch or whatever. There are so many beings, and some of them are interdimensional as well, or intradimensional, so they're not really in the third or the fourth, and they can phase in and out. Some beings can make themselves more known to us or to an individual. If they want somebody to see them, then they will try to make themselves more solid. They can lower their vibration to make it just freeze for a little bit so it's more solid, so that people can just pick up and see it. When I was a child, I definitely saw and interacted with fairies, and I've got lovely memories of that. And speaking with many, I know that there are many people in Connecting Consciousness who have these connections with these devic beings and beings. Grandmother Mulara, as you say, I mean, I'm dipping all over the place, but some of the dragons, they're so super powerful. Yes, they're gentle and they're good. They're super powerful, and sometimes dragons are needed to help with the really big issues, because they can cut right through things other beings just can't.
But they were also, we found a dragon, actually two different places, dragons that had been chained and were enslaved. So some of these beings have been in slavery in that other realm too. I wanted to say what Blackie did when he left. He gave me 3 gifts, and they were the same gifts I gave him. Incredible. He said, you know, it was just picked up, one of them with me. He said, oh, Blackie's giving us gifts, and said, these ones are for you. He knew exactly what I'd given him. And yet I'd given it to him in the physical realm, but I connected to him in that heart space and cracked open his heart. And as he left to go on the ship, these 3 gifts were given to me. Amazing. So I think the heart is an incredible tool for if you want to see these beings, or if you want to have an experience with them, you must be in your heart, because then it's safe for them to show themselves.
Yeah,
And,
that's
yeah, we had a giant that had been I'm just trying to think what the other ones were, but anyway, we've kept there's a story going to come out. It's going to of the whole thing. So we have someone that was with us that can write those scripts. Yeah.
Grandmother Mulara, you said there was a giant and you just cut out. Can you just say that? Sorry, Chris.
It's going to be turned into a story, a fable, what happened, and all the other bits and pieces that went with it. I mean, just amazing.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm kind of going back to the beginning, but wow. And I love that you said someone has written it all out, because I was going to say that would make for a really good movie. And those are the kinds of things that hopefully we're going to evolve to books and film that are more stories like that, where we can learn. And wow, how entertaining. Like, you couldn't get a better movie. I wanted to touch on a couple of things that you said. I'm going to start back, but the story that you told, Grandmother Mulara, wow, like such amazing work and so beautiful. And I love the water being in it, and the story with that really, I think, shows the power of love. Like, just having that water being shifted from what it was doing into helping you, even at risk of its life. Like, that's just amazing and powerful. And it's just so beautiful. I wanted to also kind of shift gears here and touch on dragons, because to Becky's point, we're talking about this for some upcoming spiritual topics. So I've been having discussions with many CC members about dragons, and I've learned a lot. It's been very interesting. A couple of points I wanted to share to get thoughts on. One individual told me that the dragons were way closer to us at one point in time, but because of actions, and I won't get into it, but actions of the dark side, they had to move a distance away. And now recently, and I don't know how many years that is, that they have come back closer, and that most of us have dragons. Not everyone can see them. Some, like Sue was saying, can feel them. Some just have no idea that they're there. But they're dragons of different colors for different purposes. And like green dragons are for healing, and white dragons are often for bigger purposes, but can be for protection, and golden dragons. And so I wanted to raise that up, especially. I thought it was especially intriguing that they were much closer for a long period of time and had to back away, and then have come back recently. Which anyone have any information on that or thoughts?
First of all, I want to say, as a result of this inversion, we flipped the pentagram over the country. Everything that we've been taught, we now need to invert in our third eye, invert it. So why I'm bringing that up is that because things have been now flipped, and we're going to be challenged that something we thought was a truth, actually it's the opposite. And I just share that now to say, if anyone on the call was wondering whether they can see a dragon or could see a creature in the a mythical creature, or, can even be a serpent, the rainbow serpent, she appeared. It can be whatever. Don't try not to concrete your thoughts about what it could be, but sense sensing what it is, but to, I guess what I'm saying is allow your mind to invert to the reality that they do exist and they are here.
I was going to say something similar, because that idea of love and feeling and like sensing them on that level. I've had a lot of people come and tell me, when I was doing a little bit about the Sasquatch, the hairy guys, as you call them, Grandmother Mulara, people were telling me that as children, they were so certain they were there, and everybody said they were crazy, but they knew they were there. I love, Becky, that you communicated with fairies when you were a child. I've even been told when I was down in Tasmania to go to a certain place on the land and talk to the gnomes. I couldn't see the gnomes, but I knew I was in the right place. I even got a sense of humanoid whatever, and my amazing friend Hart said those were the ancient ones. What I want to say for whoever's listening, you have those memories, or maybe you've blocked them. They might start arising up again, where you knew with your innocent little naive heart, you knew something, and you were told no, no, no. But I'm just going to say, yeah, maybe, so that you can reclaim that and understand that you know, at that innocent point, it wasn't taken away from you yet, and you might even have more knowings as an adult. I think people are having more and more things coming into their awareness now, that as our vibrations raise, as the energy on the whole planet changes, the ability to be aware of these helpers, they're not all helpers, they're their own thing. I get excited. It's because I feel like we're moving into more of our multidimensional self, and we're going to find all of our old playmates there from our childhood, and it's going to be a great old reunion.
I love that, Sue, and I completely agree. And, you know, and Grandmother Mulara says we need to flip our thinking. I do feel that that's what Awaken Aware people have had to do, that they've done that. That's part of going down the rabbit hole. That's part of waking up to the matrix. It is flipping the truths. So, but it is a journey. And as you say, you know, you can will with all your might, you know, I want to see these beings, you know, with your head. But unless you go into your heart, unless you connect with your heart, you know, you won't see them, because it is the love vibration that opens up and expands our awareness. It's not our mental will, I think.
And it's not a love of person. It's something greater than you. It's that love of all, the universal consciousness, universal love. That is where the benevolence, we notice it around us. You'll see it. I wonder how many people listening to this are going to have a fantastic experience, an engagement with our beautiful beings in the other realms. But always put a you know, unconditional love on it. You don't want to be necessarily mixing with anyone that's not in unconditional love.
Another thing I wanted to talk about today, which does actually follow on really well from this, is responsibility and right action, and perhaps in connection with psychic gifts and like really fine-tuned intuition, like knowing what to do, what's going to happen next, how to manage the responsibility and right action, especially with, you know, clairvoyance, clairaudience, getting snippets of what might happen in the future, or how should you share the knowledge that you might get from this, and how to move forward with right action? And what's the difference between, because when people develop these gifts and are aware of it, I think there is many could go into a state of ego, and I've developed this, therefore I am better than others who haven't developed this, therefore I can lead the way, tell people what to do, say what I'm saying is the truth. So how do we, because I know the group here that we have take responsibility and right action very seriously. It's the heart of everything, recognizing that when we have these gifts and we have this knowledge and we hold it with reverence, how do we carry it forwards?
I think one of the biggest things about right action is being very authentic, owning yourself, knowing yourself, like embracing the truth of you. And from that point, it's easy to move forward in right action because you're coming from a deep, like you're coming from an expression of the divine you. And so it's not, you don't have the same tendency to get pulled off into, oh, I'm special, oh, let me tell you, whatever. It's funny because sometimes as people that want that, they want to develop those things, then they push it a little bit. It's not coming from a real deep, organic, internal divine place. And so all I would recommend for anybody is like, just go to the deepest you, like get into your fully integrated divine, self that's connected on a divine level, but also grounded into form. And it's interesting because I know multiple people, including me, that as you discover gifts, and then you're kind of like timid about it because you're like, well, maybe, well, for me, I'm a rock, so it was like, oh, maybe I'm not, maybe this isn't real. But you get to the point that it's almost what I've always said is it would be criminal for me not to do what I was given. It would be painful actually when you're given a gift that's what you came here for, and you don't do it, and you like, it becomes painful, things go wrong, you get sick, you get hit by a 2x4. Whereas the more you align with the path and purpose that you chose for yourself, that was set up, that you came in with, things get easier, you have more fun, you can feel a sense of rightness. Now, for me, sense of rightness is everything, because I don't hear or see, I know. And so a sense of rightness is my guidance. What else?
Well, I would say that if you're in ego, your energy field shrinks. All right. If you're and here's the inversion. Taking your ego out of it, your energy field expands, and then you will connect with others who are also on that bandwidth expanding. And if I refer to our mission, the Solstice mission, what happened there is that all of us expanded and we all connected to each other. So we had the whole of the country covered, but if not the whole of the planet, because Iona was part of it too. Just that's another part of it. So so there, I feel as though to say that we've all got the gifts, but if we are in ego, we're keeping ourselves small, and that's not going to be helpful for anyone. And also, it might also have a charge to it. If you're trying to work in it as a healer and you're in ego, you're actually putting a charge into that experience for the other person that is actually, the charge is yours. And so taking responsibility for yourself to clean yourself up, clean up your thoughts, your emotions, your energy bodies, so that the clearer and cleaner you are, the more right way and right connection will happen. Yeah.
I love both those answers. And yeah, getting back to spiritual hygiene, absolutely. And I'm just thinking with the ego, you know, you can't have the big heart expansion, which is what you're talking about. You're talking about you shrink, but it's the heart that shrinks, but the head that grows. We always say when someone's egotistical, they're big-headed. And it is a sense of, you know, if someone's expanded with their head area and everyone else is expanded with the heart, that the head expansion areas person's not going to connect with those who expanded very well with their hearts.
They'll also
So
have a big solar plexus, because that's where the seat of the ego is.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some reason, I'm thinking of the opposite side of this. And so when Becky, you first made your comments about responsibility and right action, and then Sue, this kind of ties on to what you said about knowing yourself and being authentic and really embracing the truth of you. So I think to add to that, because this is something that I've worked on for much of my life, is not comparing yourself to others, because I think it's very easy to look at what someone else does and to think, oh, that looks really cool. I wish I could do that, right? And thinking someone else's gift is either better or higher or whatever than your own. And so I think like coming to appreciate that we all have our own gifts, and all of our gifts are very unique. So my gift is different from Sue's gift and from Grandmother Mulara's and from Becky's. But each of us are a piece of like the big puzzle, and each of us have a piece of the mission. And so like appreciating what you bring to the table, you know, it's different than everyone else, I think is really important.
Chris, that's absolutely beautiful. I completely agree.
I
That's
love
one.
that too. And you can really tell when someone is celebrating everyone else coming into their knowing, coming into their gifts, coming into their expression. That's a really good sign. When someone's trying to tell you how to do it and how to be like them, that's probably like, you might want to run the other direction.
Mm-hmm. I suppose I'd like to just add, you know, if any of those of us that are involved in the mission had any element of ego or second guessing, or, you know, it wouldn't have worked. You just had to believe in yourself. And we're all different, but collectively we were very powerful. And I would say the same for our listeners, that collectively we are very powerful. And the more that we do connect in right way around right action, there's a knowing that comes through, and the knowing will enhance your energy bodies, and you'll find you can do things and see things that you didn't know that you could, because the gifts get bigger and bigger the more you use them.
I think it how you, like what you're asking for, what you're hoping for, what you're requesting. Because I've actually known some people that, you know, oh, they want to hear, they want to see, they want to do with whatever, and something will come in there and try to fill that and lead them down a pathway, because what they wanted was this thing rather than a deep desire for what can I bring that blesses all of creation. You know, how can I express my greatest gifts for the highest and best of everything and everyone? Like, what are you asking for? If you're asking for something, you can tell when the ego's asking or when it's coming from heart, from a deep sense of connection to oneness and all beings, and you only want the best for everything. So I would say, even for the listeners, look at what you're asking for and think about whether it's for the highest, for your highest and best, for the highest and best of everything else, because that will give you a little bit of a measure what you're doing it for. In fact, I think that was what was one of your questions. It's like, what's it for?
So that was really important. I loved it when you said express. And for me, I saw that expression as being like pure God, pure source. And I'm also seeing, like, the inverted pentagram, the bad one, is almost like the AI construct. It's the mirror image. It's the, as you said, invert everything, because what has been impressed upon the world, and I know we're coming to the end of the podcast, it's perhaps not the best time to explain this concept, but it's the AI inversion. It's a mirror inversion. And what we need to do individually and collectively is flip it to the original organic and reconnect with source directly. Get rid of blocks, get rid of inversions, get rid of mirror images, and have your own direct reconnection to God's source and your authentic self. And then you can express yourself clearly and bring forth the gifts that you have for here and now. And so it's all coming together. I love this conversation because we didn't know where it would go to start off with, but it feels like it's a clear expression now. I don't know if anyone wants to wrap up now.
Well, I just want to say, because I love how you just said that. And I think it's really important, because a lot of what we are in the process of flipping or overthrowing is a lot of the ideas, programming, whatever that we've been given as what's worthy of moving toward. And it's like, so that going deep within is really questioning and flipping what's of value. It really is what's of value. Do you value, I always think of it as like party tricks. Oh, I can tell you this and that and the other thing. It's like, but what's it for? Like, is it for a bigger purpose? We need to question a lot of the ideas. You want to flip something? It's just like all of that programming. If we flip it, we will automatically drop down into ourselves and our connection with the divine and move toward that expression. Too many words. You said it much better, Becky.
I guess, my final word would be just to catch yourself. So if you're sort of finding that you're going down a particular tunnel, I've thought, just catch yourself. Go, oh, hang on. What if I inverted this? What could it be? Just a check. Anyway.
And so
the conversation. Thank you for allowing so much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely conversation. And I just have a final thought. And actually, it's something that Grandmother Mulara shared with me a while ago. And it ties to being heart-centered. And it's asking, what would love do? And I absolutely love that. And I think if we ask that question about everything, it keeps us in that heart-centered space. And which, as we've talked about throughout this conversation, is really key. So thank you, Grandmother Mulara, Sue, and thank you all for watching our podcast. And I hope everyone has enjoyed this conversation. We'll see you next time.